Hello friends, it is that time of year. Actually, I'm a little late this year, but we're not going to talk about it. But I am here to talk about my favorite books of 2019. 2019 was a fantastic reading year. I read 110 books and I had a lot of books that I loved. So this list was kind of hard to cut down. I did manage to get it to 12. I didn't include any graphic novels, so if you want me to do a separate video on the best graphic novels that I read in 2019, let me know and I can definitely do that. But yeah, without any further, let's get into this list. I don't have this ranked, so it's just in order that I read these books. So first on the list is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is just Michelle Obama's memoir. It goes through her childhood, her time in the White House, a little bit after, being a mother, stuff like that. And no surprise, it was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. I think almost every book on this list is 5 stars. I love Michelle Obama. I think she's an incredible woman, and this book only made me feel more strongly about that. Wow, I love not knowing words. It only cemented my love and my feelings for her. She is so strong and incredible. I cried multiple times while listening to this because I did listen to the audiobook, which I absolutely recommend because she's so well spoken. And I really think this book was amazingly paced because it is a pretty long audiobook from what I remember. But I was never bored. I felt each section was the perfect length and it just flowed so well. It was amazing. Next on my list is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. So after coming down with food poisoning at her wedding, the bride offers her non-exchangeable honeymoon that she won to her twin sister Olive, who is one of our main characters. And Olive has to attend this non-exchangeable honeymoon with Ethan, the groom's brother, so that they can pretend that they are the bride and groom. Only problem is that they hate each other. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Christina Lauren, they're one of my favorite romance authors. Their books are always so fun, so witty. I loved the enemies to lovers vibe, especially because these two characters are forced to be close in proximity, being on this island and sharing the room and everything. It was funny and sexy. The characters were great. I especially loved Olive. I think the plot and the setup was just really unique and interesting, and I freaking loved it. One of my new favorite Christina Laurens, if not my favorite, I'm not sure. Next on my list is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. If you somehow haven't heard of this book this year, this takes place after an alternative 2016 in which a woman won the presidential election. So this starts in 2019 where she is gearing up to go up for re-election in 2020. It follows her son, the first son of the United States, Alex, and Henry, who is a British prince. Alex and Henry kind of have a little scandal at a wedding, so they don't particularly like each other. But to make everything good between the countries and not affect the upcoming election, they have to spend time together so that people don't think that there's anything wrong. This was just incredible. No book that I have ever read has nailed the sort of 20-something humor and the way we talk and Twitter speak and all that stuff. It was just perfect. It wasn't cringy or weird. It was just excellently done. It felt like conversations that I would have with my friends. The characters were amazing, not only Alex and Henry, but all of the side characters. The politics were woven into this story so seamlessly and in a very interesting way. That might be a very American view of oh my god, a world where Donald Trump wasn't president and everything was great. But I thought it was really interesting, all the politics. I really liked how Alex sort of discovered and came into his sexuality. It was just so good. If you haven't heard about this somehow, I don't know how. And if you haven't read it, you need to. If there was one book on this list that I was you have to read it, it would be this one. Next, we have another romance. I definitely read a lot of romance and a lot of good romance this year. The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I don't have the book in front of me. I didn't write her name down because I'm dumb. But this follows a girl named Kristen who is planning her best friend's wedding, and she is doing this with the best man, Josh. And during this, Kristen and Josh start to kind of, feel things for each other. The only problem, Josh has already expressed that he wants a big family one day, but Kristen has a medical disorder that is likely going to need her to have a procedure that will not allow her to have children. I give this one a full 5 out of 5 stars. It was fun and also emotional. The characters were so witty and headstrong, and I loved their dynamic. They had this sort of communication struggle between the two of them, but it was the kind that made sense rather than was just needlessly frustrating. This is one of those books where I had to keep reading it, but I also didn't want to finish it. Definitely one of my new favorite romances of all time. It was just sweet and sad and beautiful, and it discussed, I think, a lot of important things. And if I could give bonus stars, I would give a bonus star to this just for the dog in it, Stuntman Mike. Amazing, love him. Next on my list is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, I think. The sun is just playing games today with the lighting. So this follows a girl named Elizabeth. She is an orphan, and so she kind of grew up in this library that houses these magical books, and it's the librarian's jobs to sort of take care of them, but they also believe that magic is bad and evil. And sorry if I look distracted, I'm watching the Saints and Vikings games, and I think a big turnover just happened. So basically, she's grown up here. She loves the books, but she knows that magic is no good. Sorcerers are no good. But then one day some events happen, and she finds herself having to team up with a sorcerer, Nathaniel, and together they realize there's some shit going on that they need to stop. This was such a unique fantasy book because the books themselves were so interesting. Like, they were like magical books, not just like written magical stuff, but like the books would like, sometimes they would like talk, or they would like spit ink or stuff. It was just so cool. It was kind of like a Hogwartsy feeling almost, and it really like celebrated books, which obviously anyone reading loves books, but it did it without being like, oh, I'm so quirky, I love books. Like, you know what I'm saying? The writing was absolutely beautiful. It was that kind of flowery writing, but not being like too much. I absolutely fell in love with these characters. Elizabeth was so kind and so soft, yet she also had no problem with doing whatever she had to do to defend what she believed in and her loved ones. And Nathaniel was like that sarcastic, witty character who is also very swoon-worthy. Oh my god, I loved him. And he was bisexual, which is great representation. And the way these two characters came together, the way their different personalities worked, was just so beautiful. I loved it. Unfortunately, this book is a standalone. I really wish it wasn't a standalone. Also, there's a demon named Silas in it, and he's amazing. And this book was just chef's kiss to the gods. Next, I have Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. This follows a girl named Millie who gets accepted into a boarding school in Scotland that she's always dreamed about going to. When she gets there, she finds out her roommate is Flora, who acts like a stuck-up princess. And then she finds out she's actually a princess. So I have a little like notes here just about like a brief description and a brief like why I loved it, so that I'm not just sitting here being like it was amazing, even though I still think I'm being here being like it was amazing. But what I wrote here was for my why of liking it. Female boarding school enemies to lovers. Do I have to say more? This is like really good enemies to lovers too, because they definitely hated each other at first. It wasn't like they hated each other for like 2 seconds and then it was like we're in love. I think this was just like really well done, although the book was very short, so take from that what you will. Characters were witty and snarky, but also so cute. Oh my god, another turnover? But they were also so cute together, and I just loved it. I really think my only problem with this was that it was way too short. I wanted like so many more pages. I think this is the last book in Rachel Hawkins' little Royals duology, but wow, I really hope she continues in this world because I love it. Next up, not a Sorcery of Thorns, but A Lesson in Thorns by Sierra Simone. This is another book that I yelled a lot about this year, and its sequel, but we're not including her for reasons. I like to describe this book as the Raven Boys, but for sluts. Basically, it follows these 6 people who spent this one summer together when they were children. Some of them went their separate ways after that, but now as adults, they all find themselves coming back to Thornchapel, which one of the 6 of them owns. Our main protagonist is Poe, and she's a librarian. She accepted a job to kind of be the librarian of Thornchapel and go through its big ass expansive library and catalog it. And she also went because her mother went missing like 12 years ago or something, and the last place she was seen was Thornchapel. So she's hoping to kind of discover some of the secrets. Lots of mysterious and kinky stuff ensue, and it's just a good time. This is one of the smuttiest and kinkiest books I've ever read, but it was done so classy, and like the writing was so beautiful. Sierra Simone really paid attention to like the small details of like hands and like just little touches, all that stuff. Oh, I love that so much. There was also a lot of angst because some of the characters don't get along, and then Poe is trying not to like attach herself too much, and like there's all these mysteries, and it's like magical, but is it? Like it's that Raven Boys feeling. That's the best way I can describe it. Sorry if you haven't read the Raven Boys, but it's just so good. I loved the way this friend group came together and how everything kind of like comes full circle and everything. This made me realize I am an Auden Guest whore first and a human being second, and it was just great. So if you like steamy books, steamy books with like some good plot too, this is it. This is the book. Next up, completely different genre here, Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is her memoir, basically documenting everything she had to go through after Brock Turner, sure that name rings a bell, raped her. He was the asshole who only got like 6 months in prison and then maybe spent 3, I think. This was really hard to go through. I did listen to the audiobook, and again, I recommend it. I just think memoirs are the best in audiobook. This made me realize how much a victim has to go through in our court system and how fucked up it is. Like, I think I knew some of it, but there was so much more that I didn't know, and it was just hard to swallow this. But like, I feel like it's very necessary to do so. I feel like every person in the justice system should have to read this. It was so well written, so well paced. I literally cried from beginning to end. I remember I started this book and I was taking my dog for a walk, and I was like tearing up on the walk, and then I listened through to the acknowledgements, and those made me cry. So take from that what you will. I don't think I mentioned it, but any book that I don't say otherwise is 5 stars, including this one. Next is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This is set in 1872. It follows a girl named Celine fleeing from Paris to New Orleans, where she stays at a convent. She starts to become enamored with the city and kind of tangled up with all of its mysterious and dangerous activities. Girls start turning up dead, and Celine finds herself in the middle of both possibly being in danger and wanting to figure out the mystery and like who was doing all the bullshit. And while this, she's also finding herself tangled up with one Sebastian Saint Germain and kind of wondering, you know, I'm attracted to him, but also, is he guilty? Is he suspicious? What's going on? I had a mental breakdown over this book because it was so good. I finished it and I was screaming. It was like 1 in the morning. I can still picture one of the end scenes perfectly in my head because it was just so well done. It's like I watched a movie. The writing in this was fantastic. Some of my favorite writing of the year. It described everything so beautifully and almost sensually, where you're able to really feel the sort of danger and excitement that the city is offer and how Celine is feeling. It just, I can't even describe how good it was, like how much it made me wrap up in that kind of feeling. That dynamic between Celine and Bastien, superior. The angst, so good. If you love angst, you will love this. You have to love this because the angst, I'm sweating. It was so good. The plot was good too, but definitely the characters that had me like hooked. Although the end, like I said, had me screaming. I needed the next book like months ago. Next we have Serpent and Dove by Shelby something. Again, I didn't write her last name down. This is about a girl named Lou. She's a witch, but she has abandoned magic, and she lives in the city where witches are hunted. The church is very like at large, blah blah blah. She ends up having to marry a Chaucer named Reed, and basically a Chaucer is someone that works for the church and hunts these witches. And like I said, they end up getting tangled up and have to get married. So you kind of see Lou sort of having to conceal herself while also starting to kind of feel things for Reed, dealing with all that. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. This book was just addicting. I never wanted to put it down. It was funny and sad and beautiful. I loved the characters, especially Lou. She was so feisty and headstrong, but we also see those vulnerable moments that she has. I loved seeing Reed's progression throughout the story and just the effect that Lou kind of has on him and how they affect each other. Also, he's like 7 foot tall. incredible. Another like supreme enemies to lovers here, like literally enemies to lovers, like he's trying to kill her kind. I really like the plot, and I really like the side characters too. Again, I'm very characterly drawn, as you might notice, and this had good main characters and side characters. I loved Coco, who is Lou's best friend, also a witch, and then Ansel, who is another Chaucer that Lou meets while she's with Reed. The dynamic of it all was just fantastic. I know some people hated this book, but I was not one of them. Almost done, 2 more. Next is Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. This is a spin-off from the Raven Cycle series. It follows mainly Ronan and his family. It really starts to explore more of Ronan's dreaming, so it also introduces other dreamers as well as this group of people who are trying to stop dreamers, basically like take them out because they believe one of them will bring upon the end of the world. This book reminded me how much I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing. It was just incredible. This book made me love Ronan much more than I had in the Raven Cycle. And even more surprising, it made me love Declan, who is Ronan's older brother. I really had no care about him whatsoever, and I wasn't looking forward to reading about him in this book, but now I love him. I want to protect him and tuck him into bed and give him a hug. We also get to see more of Ronan and Adam's relationship in this, and it's again so well written. It's just so beautiful. I think chapter 5 is the first chapter we get of them, and I would give that chapter alone a Pulitzer Prize. It's fitting that this is the first book in the Dreamer trilogy because it was just dreamy. It introduced a lot of new characters, or a couple of new characters, but I think it did so very well. The chapters were kind of like shorter, and you got a good just mesh of everything. It was fantastic, and I am so excited for the rest of the trilogy because I was unsure going into this, but now I'm super sure. I love it. Whew, there's 7 seconds left and New Orleans just tied the game, or did he miss it? Oh. Or was there a timer? I don't know. There's some drama. Let's hurry up and get to the last book. The last book on my list is The Guinevere Deception by Kirsten White. This is like a King Arthur retelling. I went into this knowing nothing about King Arthur, but that didn't matter because I still ended up loving it. Guinevere is basically sent to Camelot to marry Arthur. Merlin has sent her because Arthur had to banish magic and therefore banish Merlin, who's like a wizard. Guinevere is sent there to protect Arthur and be like the one kind of magical person in the castle without anybody knowing about it. She's like a changeling, I think it's called. I'm still not entirely sure everything about her because I don't think we're supposed to. We don't even know her real name yet. She has a lot of mystery around her. But I really loved Guinevere. I loved how she was very soft and gentle, but again, kind of like Elizabeth, ready to jump into action at any time. And she did jump into action many times. I loved all the relationships she had, from her friendships to the possible romances. And yes, I said romances. There is kind of a love triangle. And what made this super special was that it was a love triangle that made me love both options, which never happens to me. I did have my preference. Something I think Kirsten White did very well was Arthur was always described as this guy who's very loved by his kingdom, how people just look up to him and just like being in his presence. And somehow she writ him to make me feel like the same way, and I thought that was just really, really well done. I was definitely in this book for the characters most of the way through. The plot was fine, but it wasn't like something that was really drawing me in until we got to the end and the plot twist. I literally had to be like, what the fuck, out loud, because I was shocked at what I was reading. I had been expecting something else to happen, so when this came, I was just like, excuse me? And then that kind of really hooked me to the plot, so I cannot wait for the next one. Okay, that was my list of favorite books of 2019. There is a couple other ones I could have included, like I literally can't remember the name of it, so maybe not, but The Right Swipe was another great romance, super diverse. The one I can't think of is like the one in the left, The Simple Wild, there we go. That was another really great romance. I read The Poet X, which was really amazing. Michigan vs. the Boys, that's one I just read at the end of the year, again, super amazing. I think I have a list on Goodreads of like my favorite books of 2019. I'll leave that link down below if you want to see some that didn't make the cut in this video. But yeah, that's all there is for this video. I hope I introduced some recs to you, maybe, if you haven't read these. I mean, these are books that I've been screaming about all year, but you know, in case you're new here, you missed it or whatever, I recommend all these books. I think there was a good sort of mesh in here. Although I realized I didn't have a thriller on this list, so hopefully that changes in 2020 because I do love my thrillers. But yes, okay, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.